Okay, here we go. Good afternoon. I'm Brianne Nadeau, Councilmember for Ward 1 and Chair of the Council's Committee on Public Works and Operations. Today is Wednesday, December 18th, and we're holding this meeting through the online platform Zoom. The time is 3:15 p.m., and I'm calling to order this additional meeting of the committee. For the record, I'd like to note we have a quorum consisting of at-large Councilmember Robert White, Ward 2 Councilmember Pinto, and me. Today, the committee will consider and vote on two measures: the Council Period 25 Activity Report of the Committee on Public Works and Operations and the Supplemental Report on B25-749, the Amplified Sound Mitigation Regulation Amendment Act of 2024. This marks the conclusion of my first term as the chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. I was excited to take on this new role 2 years ago, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. The committee's legislative and oversight work over Council Period 25 has been rooted in the responsible oversight of agencies and public resources under its purview. The 23 agencies and offices under our oversight have never been housed under one committee before. The agencies in the committee's purview are often among the most visible to residents in their day-to-day lives, responsible for trash and recycling pickup, the issuance of business licenses, and every other imaginable type of license, to holding administrative hearings on public benefits or claims of damage from potholes. But in addition to overseeing these numerous and often mundane but critical services, the committee's leveraged its oversight in profound ways beyond what many likely think of when considering the agencies under its oversight. The committee is employing DPW parking enforcement in new ways to improve road safety by literally getting the most dangerous cars off the road by towing them. We're using our oversight of DPW's trash, recycling, and compost collection to play a role in realizing a cleaner environment for our city. Our work with the Office of Human Rights has expanded protections for residents. Despite having widely varied agencies and offices under our oversight, we've realized a few themes have formed in our legislative and oversight efforts: keeping our city clean and livable, road safety and public safety, efficient and effective use of public funds, and supporting the rights, health, and well-being of residents. I believe that everyone in the district should be able to live in a clean and healthy environment no matter where they live, and that was a big focus of the committee during this council period. We moved numerous bills to that end, including the Illegal Dumping Enforcement Amendment Act of 2024, which will advance the district's efforts to curb illegal dumping, and the Collecting Litter and Ensuring Adequate Neighborhood Collections Amendment Act of 2024, otherwise known as Clean Collections, which will help ensure adequate solid waste collection services at multifamily properties in the district. We also invested in greater enforcement of solid waste violations and funded DPW's standalone restroom pilot, as well as one of my personal favorites, the district's curbside composting pilot program. We conducted an oversight roundtable on the Zero Waste Plan, which provides a strategy for sustainable solid waste management and is critical for reaching the district's zero waste goals in order to better understand what's already been done and what DPW's plans for implementation are. We made significant strides in modernizing and supporting the Department of For-Hire Vehicles and DPW's Parking Enforcement Management Administration, allowing them to refocus on core functions related to traffic safety and oversight. At the start of 2023, DFHV had been lacking a permanent director for over a year and had been pushed far from its core mission. Instead of directing energy and resources towards regulating the for-hire industry, it was tasked with running several microtransit systems. 1/3 of the agency's staff was operating a school transportation program. 2 years later, the agency not only has a new director with a strong vision for the future, it also has been almost freed of running programs not related to its stated mission. Just yesterday, Council built on that strengthened foundation by passing the Carrier for Hire Enforcement and Oversight Amendment Act of 2024. This will consolidate for hire vehicle activities in an agency already specialized in that industry and gives DFHV enforcement officers the tools they need to more effectively impact the safety of consumers, drivers, and our roadways in general. The district gets to be a leader in taking this step, and I think many other cities and states will follow that lead. This committee made a similar impact in reform of parking enforcement law. Council stepped up oversight of DPW parking enforcement in the years prior to my time as chair of this committee, which began to have a positive impact. However, the laws that actually govern parking enforcement were antiquated, inadequate, and in some cases outright missing. DPW's responsibility for parking enforcement was only present in 3 words in an executive order from the 1980s, and the authority to boot and tow vehicles was buried in a law close to a century old. With the passage of the Parking Enforcement Modernization Act, this committee adopted a new, refreshed, and reorganized chapter of code, giving DPW the tools and the mandate it needs to not only be effective in parking enforcement, but to focus those resources on going after the most dangerous scofflaw drivers and vehicles. That includes the ability to immediately impound vehicles, avoiding accountability for dangerous driving with fraudulent, obscured, or missing tags. To make all of this happen, this committee found funding for the largest expansion in parking enforcement staff in many years, where there was once one or maybe two tow crews, we're now up to 10. We also worked hard to support and enhance the rights, health, and well-being of the district's residents. We moved the Fairness and Human Rights Amendment Act of 2024, which provides stronger protections for individuals by expanding the definition of sexual harassment and granting an individual the right to withdraw their complaint at any time, in turn creating a more equitable adjudication process at OHR. We also moved the revised Project Labor Agreement Act of 2024, which amends the Procurement Practices Reform Act of 2010 to revise the cost threshold for the required use of project labor agreements on construction contracts from $75 million to $50 million, which in turn will protect the interests of the district, working conditions for labor, and management protections for prime contractors to set forth procedures to resolve labor disputes arising under the contract. We conducted a roundtable on the sexual harassment investigation conducted by an independent counsel to review the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel's sexual harassment officers' investigations surrounding the John Falchecchio sexual harassment investigations. The roundtable yielded several successful outcomes, including an agreement from the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel to provide a significant number of key documents they'd been accused of withholding, to assist the DC Attorney General in investigating potential criminal behavior by John Falchecchio, the discovery that Molk was in possession of Falchecchio's government electronic devices, which were not reviewed during the course of the initial investigation, and an opportunity to shed light on the mistakes that were made by the executive during their initial investigation. This is all critically important in order for the council to set a higher standard for transparency, accountability, and use of public funds in the future. While we focus on efficient and effective use of public funds in all our work, I particularly want to highlight a few things we did over the last 2 years. In the FY25 budget, we enabled the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection to fully implement the BEST Act in a way that reduces implementation costs by $2 million, while maintaining investments in reducing licensing fees and radically streamlining the district's outdated statutes. We also reallocated nearly $2 million from the Chief Technology Officer's proposed budget for a new Office of Artificial Intelligence to restore cuts and invest in other core functions. We also held a hearing on the District of Columbia Public Schools Procurement Authority Amendment Act of 2023, which would strip DCPS of its independent procurement authority. While we didn't end up moving the bill, the hearing did yield several important outcomes, including a better understanding of where DCPS procurement process was failing, and the restoration of the job position of a mid-level DCPS employee who was wrongfully terminated from her position during the agency's own internal investigation. Finally, I'd like to highlight some stats from our work over the last 2 years. We moved 13 bills, a nearly 50% clearance rate, and 15 resolutions, which included 7 agency director confirmation resolutions. We held 8 hearings and 7 roundtables, 15 performance oversight hearings, 12 budget oversight hearings, and 12 regular or additional meetings. Suffice it to say, we've been busy. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve as chair of the committee during this council period. I'd like to thank you, my colleagues who serve on this committee, for your dedicated engagement over the last 2 years. Your feedback and contributions have been invaluable during this time. I'd also like to thank the many advocates who work tirelessly to ensure that all our residents get the services and support they deserve. Your input and efforts were a big part of our success. Thanks to the budget office staff, with a special thank you to Jen Budoff, Ann Phelps, Joe Wolf, and especially our wonderful analysts we've worked with over the past 2 years, Sam Hodges. And a thank you to the Office of the General Counsel for their support and guidance, especially Sandra Karpinski, who's no longer with the office, and Lauren Mendonza, who did a ton of work to get the committee across the finish line at the end of this council period. I also want to thank the agency fiscal officers from the OCFO that have provided my team with clear and balanced input, as well as the secretary's team and the Office of Cable Television for keeping the trains running, so to speak. Finally, I want to thank my committee staff, Amanda Chulik, Abby Boschert, Sabrine Kadi, David Menny, and Ariel Ardura for all your hard work during this council period. You're the ones who also coined the phrase, the nitty-gritty city committee, and I think we've lived up to that name. With that, I'm recommending the approval of the council period 25 activity report of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. Is there any discussion on the report? Councilmember Pinto, then White. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Nadeau, and thank you for an extremely productive council period under your leadership of this committee. I remember, your swearing in remarks and how enthusiastic you were of kind of taking this on and writing, working with our agencies to make sure that services were the best they could be for district residents. And so I really appreciate all of your and your team's hard work. I do want to highlight a couple of things that I was thrilled that this committee focused on. I have spent a lot of time this year working on and thinking about public safety and promoting public safety. Much of that was done through the Judiciary Committee with the passage of Secure DC. But there was also a lot of public safety legislation that was advanced through this committee. A couple of those were streamlining processes by having concealed weapons licensing appeals go through the Office of Administrative Hearings. Enhancing enforcement against vehicles with fraudulent or obscured tags, allowing for regulation and enforcement against food and parcel delivery activities, just passed yesterday. There was also a lot of support needed for our downtown recovery and for our recovery of our small business community, which has been a major priority for all of us. And I really appreciate all of your work on my bill, the BEST Act, to pass and fund it, and work so hard on it, which is really streamlining all of our business licensing processes and making it much more intuitive and cost effective to do business in the District of Columbia. I hope that we can get to a place where we are the leader in the country at our business retention and attraction so that businesses want to locate here and workers want to work here. Appreciate all of your work with many other bills with litter control and supporting healthy and livable communities, the Amplified Sound Mitigation Amendment Act, and all of your work in supporting and empowering women and girls, and appreciate our work together with the Fairness and Human Rights Administration Amendment Act. So thank you very much again to you and your team, and really appreciated having the chance to be on this committee and working alongside you over the last couple of years.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember White?
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. First, thank you for being brief in the year-end report. Yeah, you got to be proud of all the work you and your team did, but to still be brief, I appreciate it. I want to thank you for, I mean, you all really did some good work, and I was proud to be a member of the committee and watch many of these bills come to fruition. Won't rename everything, but the Fairness and Human Rights bill was one of the things that you mentioned we were able to work together on recently on the amplified sound. So really appreciate your collaboration, appreciate your leadership, and appreciate you taking on the nitty-gritty issues that are important. So again, thanks so much to you and a very talented committee team. I've really enjoyed serving on this committee with you.
Thank you both so much. Appreciate that. Now, with that, I move to approve the Council Period 25 activity report of the Committee on Public Works and Operations with leave for staff to make technical, conforming, and editorial changes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Next, we will turn to the second and final measure on today's agenda, supplemental report on B25-749, the Amplified Sound Mitigation Regulation Amendment Act of 2024. This report provides additional justification for the regulation of amplified noise levels across the city as applies to the legislation that the council passed at yesterday's legislative meeting. The text of the report was circulated with the ANS that was passed, but the committee wanted to ensure it was included as a part of the record with the legislation. With that, I'm recommending the approval of the supplemental report on B25-749, the Amplified Sound Mitigation Regulation Amendment Act of 2024. Is there any discussion on the report? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I move to approve the supplemental report on B25-749, the Amplified Sound Mitigation Regulation Amendment Act of 2024, with leave for staff to make technical changes and conforming and editorial changes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Is there any other business before the committee? Hearing and seeing none, this concludes today's meeting. The time is 3:29 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Take care.